representing Franchise Secrets, Eric Von Horn.
I'm going to talk about private equity. Now, as both from a franchisee perspective and from the franchisor perspective. Again, some background of myself. I'm a franchisor, and my business partner in that franchise sold his franchisor to a private equity company. So he understands that. We have a lot of those conversations. So I understand it from that perspective. And being a franchisee that has been a part of brands that have sold to private equity, and my experience with that, and my experience as a franchisee selling to private equity. So this is the context for this question. So the question is, what should I be aware of or thinking about with private equity companies coming in to purchase franchisees or purchase franchisors? So from the franchisor perspective, if you are in it for the long game, think about this: horsepower brands. We are not in this to grow a brand and sell it quickly to private equity. That's just not our plan right now. Our plan is to grow multiple brands within horsepower. And so we have a really big company that we are able to grow over the long term, because you just don't grow multiple brands overnight. So it's a long-term play for us. If it was a short-term play, we would have a different strategy. There would not be horsepower brands. So that's one thing to look at. Like, does that franchisor have a bigger vision, a longer-term vision? At Horsepower Brands, right now, that's our vision: to have 10 different franchise brands doing $1 billion in revenue collectively. That's the big goal. So what that means for us, we always have our pulse of private equity. And I think every franchisee, as a franchisee, should have a pulse of what private equity is doing within franchising, how that impacts you as a franchisee if private equity buys your franchisor, or if you have the opportunity to sell to a franchise, as a franchisee, you have the opportunity to sell to a private equity company. So those are things to keep in mind as well. So let's talk about, as a franchisee, somebody buys my franchise as and the franchisor, and now all of a sudden I'm not with the original founders. I'm all of a sudden with a bigger brand. And I want to talk about this kind of removed from what I've experienced. And I'll talk about it from the perspective of talking to a lot of franchisees that grew with a brand after I exited that brand. So I was with it, two different brands, as with the original founders. I exited, and my friends are still with some of these brands that are now run by private equity. Were they fearful? Were my friends fearful that big private equity was going to come in and try to squeeze every last dollar out of them and then flip it to the next one? 100%. I think that's probably every franchisee's fear. And as well it should be. You should be knowledgeable about all the different possibilities as you go into it. And there are certain private equity companies out there that add a lot of value, both from the franchisee's perspective and the franchisor's perspective. Now, from the franchisees, I've heard, Eric, these guys have given us so many more tools and resources and help that the original founders just could not do. And so that was on the positive side. They gave a lot of different tools that were just not available to them, because now they're part of a larger company with much deeper pockets. So that's been one of the positives. The negatives are, it's not the same as it used to be. Things change. And that's, if you're used to the good old boys club and just picking up the phone and talking to your friend, the founder, that's just not going to happen anymore. So there's good things and there's bad things. There's advantages and disadvantages. Most of the time, I've seen there be more advantages versus disadvantages. And there's even advantages for existing franchisees within certain systems to be able to acquire other brands within that family of systems. So there's growth strategies that are advantageous for current franchisees within certain structures where there's a large private equity company that is running the particular brand. I just got off a Zoom call with an investment banker, and the investment banker basically packages up deals to shop to private equity within, and that's a, kind of a real simple way of saying it. So the investment banker's job is to help you as the franchisee get that business sold to private equity, family office, whatever it is. So we just had a call inside the Franchise Tribe Mastermind. We had an investment banker come in and spill the beans. I mean, Brian's his name, and I won't get into all the details because it was a really interesting, solid conversation where all the Franchise Tribe members got to ask him questions. And I tell you, they left that meeting much more educated. They learned things from Brian that are immediately going to save them money when they buy a new territory, when they sign new franchise agreements. I guarantee it will save them a significant amount of money just by 2 pieces of advice that he gave the mastermind. And by the way, that's what you want when you join the mastermind. You want to look for those nuggets like that so you can get an ROI, a return on your investment for the price that you're paying for masterminds. So with that said, if you're interested in the Franchise Tribe Mastermind, go to franchisetribe.com and check out the mastermind there. So franchisees wanting to sell, certain industries are ripe for it. Service-based businesses, I have not heard a lot of them that are ripe for larger private equity buyouts for franchisees. Health, beauty, fitness, food, those ones are ripe for the right brand, meaning the franchisor has to be one that has the right culture to have large franchisees that are backed by private equity. So the franchisor has to be the right fit. The franchisee has to have built a business that is the right fit in the right market. So example of that, there's certain brands out there, and I'm going to use a non-franchise brand, SoulCycle. SoulCycle's not a franchise. They crushed it in places like LA and New York. They did very, very well. Again, not a franchise, but they didn't do well in middle America, in the suburbs. They just did not crush it there. They did not do very well there. So that's a brand that would have done well in just the urban markets, nowhere else. Anytime Fitness, they do really well in small markets. So you just need to know what you're getting into and to make sure that you are in the market where the franchisor thrives. If you're in the wrong market, you might do well as a franchisee or do okay as a franchisee, but the private equity company is not going to be that interested in you. Also, they need significant amounts of EBITDA, significant amounts of cash flow, millions in cash flow, EBITDA, before they're interested in you. So that can happen a couple of different ways. If you have a brand as a franchisee where you are making millions of dollars, then that's interesting to them. And maybe you've done that, and that would be an interesting conversation with private equity or an investment banker. The other thing is, do you want to come together with other franchisees that are part of your same brand to be able to shop that with an investment banker to private equity or something like that? So there's multiple different ways to do it. So that's something to think about. The industry needs to be the right industry, it needs to be the right franchise, and it needs to be in the right markets. So those are some perspectives of private equity, again, from both the franchisee and the franchisor.